I think we're ready for the next question. And the next question is actually every roundtable the same, although every roundtable is different. It is, what did we miss in 2017? So in 2017, World Class Maintenance conducted a Delphi study with some 50 experts from various industries and various backgrounds, asking about what are the key priorities for the coming years. And in the top 14, we have performance dashboards, I think at 8 or so. So that's high, not all the way up there. Back then, big data was number 1, but still respectably in the top 4, we had 40 different items. And only a few of them made it, of course. Only one made it to number 8. So if Roland will share with us a screen with the diagram that a smaller group of us made back then we can have a look at that. Yeah, typically with my eyes, I need to make that larger, but keep it that way, it's good now. So this is what we wrote 4 years ago. And let me walk through this with you from left to right. And then let's hear what's wrong, what's right in there. So KPI dashboard. Oh, number 13, actually, not number 8. Well, still happy that you are there, a KPI dashboard, number 13. I think nowadays it might have gone higher because we're ready 4 years further on. Okay. Immediately there, steer on targets, not on feelings. That's a nice, I think fundamentally that's it. You want to be more fact-based. But immediately you see to the left there's a lack of insight into, we actually don't know precisely what the current status of our assets and the risk and the costs associated. Something as fancy as Eneco had, with not just all the good view of where do those pipes lie, but also how high is the likelihood that they'll be breaking and how bad would that be for us. That's not a level of sophistication that many companies have. So what you need is a step back. You need this high-level helicopter view, because if you have too many dashboards, and I think Sander gave a nice example of that, you don't see you see the forest and not the trees anymore. You lack the overview. That can be due to the fact that you need agreements on those KPIs, and we already heard those KPIs develop over time. You get as you learn, other things become important, and you find out things that you didn't measure in the beginning. I keep going up. Next to that is a lack of insight in the key parameters. Again, this closely ties to the knowledge management, the learning aspect, which is also a priority. That if you want to measure something, yes, you learn from that, but before you can measure something, you have to understand a bit what it is that you're trying to measure and manage. So that key parameter thing. And then, of course, it's difficult to get the right data for that, also to get an insight on what's leading and lagging. These are complex systems we try to manage. And in general, just difficult to define performance. So there's a lot of knowledge management in the top left corner. If you go to the right-hand side, you go more to the cultural side. There's a resistance. Oh, no, not yet another system. A feeling of somebody looking over your shoulders. Hey, we're doing just fine. We don't need it there. The implementation takes long. It's complex, and actually also the staff, they don't know what can we actually influence. So there are many different aspects to be managed here. My question now to you is, and this is a free for all as far as I'm concerned, and you can skip you can take out the view now. I think Roland, people more or less remember. So what's missing? What is what's not on there that we really need, or what's already outdated? Yes, Johan?
Okay, from our perspective of implementation of the KPIs, the first step is to understand basically who you build the KPI dashboard for. That is, who's the client and what level of the company is sitting, and what is his role in this whole thing. Is he part of management that must look at the budgets? Must he, specifically I'm talking from a maintenance perspective. Must he look at the budgets? Must he see what is the problem areas from a management viewpoint? if you look at a maintenance manager, he's more interested to know which areas is problematic areas, like you mentioned on the pipe that's moving. Who's going to be the audience for that KPIs? Is it usually the engineering department? Then there's KPIs for the maintenance, the actual performance of the maintenance. That's the maintenance scheduler and the maintenance controller that basically is interested to know when to schedule maintenance, how much does it cost, and how long does it take to do the actual maintenance by the field staff. And then the last participants of the input to the dashboard is the field engineers that's actually doing the maintenance on the plants. And that is very important also for them to understand what is being measured. Okay, first of all, so you've got different clients and each one has got a certain perception of what they need.
The client is missing in this diagram. The people you do actually do it for, the people have to use the information. There are different clients, I understand that. Yeah.
Yes.
Totally different direction. It's on the IT side. Because I heard, for instance, I heard Sander talk about that with SAP, they could get the basic data better. I heard Amir talking about the different tools you can use nowadays. But this is from ancient times, people. This is from late 2016. What has changed in and what is relevant there? So it's not just IT. The manager is important, but can Sander and Amir perhaps expand a little bit on that? Random model.
Yeah, perhaps I can. Yeah. Would you like to go first, Sander?
No, go. Okay.
Let's see. I think, well, if I look back at the current systems we use, SAP for one, Expedesk for another example, all of these systems have integrated BI features. They're all capable of building at least the most simple dashboard, some pie charts, some clustered columns that tell you an image, but they are rarely ever used, at least in our case. And as of late, business intelligence has been a booming topic, and suddenly people are much more interested in things like Power BI or Tableau to use them as an integrated tool itself. So you could actually build any dashboard you want within the separate systems, but putting them all together in a data lake and connecting them, that is what's really happening now. That's one of the bigger things that will impact how well a dashboard can be used, is that you can much better communicate between your systems and then between the people of the company as a cascade effect of that. Because before, the maintenance information was in the maintenance system and financial information is in SAP. And the only way to link them is with a reference number, maybe an Excel sheet in between, a CSV or something like that, and then you would have that dashboard. But I think the entire industry is starting to push towards having a direct link between every single system, and then have the departments talk to each other more based on data and information, rather than their own experiences and maybe their separate projects.
Yeah. Sander?
On your question, how do you assure that you have a single point of truth? Because I recognize your point, and we face in several cases that we have certain information in SAP, we have information in, for example, in our APM Bentley system, and it's not synchronized with each other. How do you assure that?
Well, currently at ENGIE, we have a team working on a data lake or data warehouse, where all those information will be dumped either with SQL queries or some other method. And then within that one environment, everything is linked together, and you can connect to that lake and get the information you want. And only one party or one team works on making the right connections. And that way you can keep them manageable, because everything is, localized at one team. But you can also always go back to the source, and it's only one source. And from there on, you can easily find what the problem was or what the improvement needs to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
But even within such a data lake, you can have two things about two data points about the same topic, and two clocks might have a different time on it, right? So is that what you mean, Rob, with the data quality? Which one is correct?
Yeah. You see that we have typically you have a financial system, you have your breakdown structure of a plant, for example, but you have also your fail mechanisms written down somewhere. And the difficulty we face is to have all these data synchronized. And for example, in a typical turnaround situation where you have a lot of activities on one point, it's very important to have this balanced with each other.
Can I say
But
something
isn't that,
about
and
that?
to also, sorry, Johan?
Basically, the main thing is to provide some kind of integration, as mentioned by me. So at this stage, we provide one single solution that combines the functional, the financial, the technical, the maintenance, and the spatial aspects of the assets. Okay, so everything is combined in one system, but furthermore, we integrate via ESB, ESB bus to get information from QPR, which is the Quality Performance Management System.
Yeah.
And so there's a standard one in SAP also, standard ESB bus, which you can use to integrate all your systems together. And that's actually step one. Because if you've got two parameters, you must decide who's the owner, who's the boss of that specific parameter, who's the right parameter and which one is not. And if it's not, then you must seek it.
But that still takes time. But perhaps that's okay, because getting a common language, getting this one source of truth is also a process. I remember from my own background in goods flow management and manufacturing, that there was a time that there were 20 different definitions of cost price, of lead time, of inventory, and every department has its own definition, its own measurement. And in the end, of course, nowadays, because you measure this and that, because without stock, just look at the discussion on how many vaccines we have on stock these days. If the COVID crisis that all depends on your definition. So getting the definitions common is, I think, also a part of growing up together and getting that single source of truth. It's also a thing that takes time.
Yeah.
I was trying to get Sander to tell us a bit more about that SAP stuff and how that worked at you guys.
Well, I think we're pretty much the same as Amir explained. We have the different system, and we're now trying to get it more automated via additional systems, because SAP isn't very helpful in extracting data automatically. So you need to put something in between, create a dashboard around it. And maybe it sounds a little bit simple. Okay, Tata Steel is working with SAP. However, as much as locations we have, as different SAP systems we have.
Yeah.
Every location has its own SAP system. That part is standardized, so you know which field or which transaction you can use as a common. However, it still are different systems that needs to be combined to one. I think the most complex part for now is what you say is, okay, my dashboard is presenting me something, and especially when it's not the value you would expect or hope to see, what is causing it, and you need to try to find, going back to the source, find back what's causing it, and that understanding is getting pretty rare within the company to have it all, have a total overview of the systems, the process, whatsoever.
Why is that getting rare, Sander? I think I know the answer, but I would like to hear it from you.
Because the reporting, it can be Excel, it can be Power BI, whatsoever. Okay, which data is getting into that? Okay, going back to SAP in our case, and how must I go back to the filters for my department? We do it more generic when it's on a weekly or a monthly base, and not like some of your examples that are pretty specific cases. Okay, I now have something that breaks, for example, what is now being the effect and whatsoever. So, but yeah, what we say is all the systems, the knowledge of the different tooling and how to use it is getting harder.
Yeah. Yeah, so people retire, the process getting more complex. So the human knowledge.
Yeah, and you can write it down. However, it's still being complex for the user.
Yeah. Thomas, you may be new in your job, but still Eneco, the example that we just talked about this GIS with the various pipes, that's really an advanced example. So as Eneco, as a more advanced user of dashboards, what are the things that are missing for you? What are the things you guys want to do in the coming years that's not on there, or just more general? But what is it what's the next level, more or less, for you guys?
I think for us it's making in our case of this dashboards, it will be even more a higher reliability of what you a higher level of prediction, and that's what we'll do with some more data. Furthermore, what we will be doing is, for example, well, we have a lot of small assets, as you call them, at the homes of people, of course, which are generating the heat in their houses. And for that, we don't have a dashboard at the moment of their performance, the breakdown levels, and that will be for us a really important one to get a better grip on that.
But you do have the smart meters, but they don't measure precisely the heat.
No, well, they measure the heat, but it's more in a maintenance kind of way, maintenance kind of sense for me. You know, how many of this type of brand that we have break down, and after how many years do they fail? You know, we don't have a really good insight in that, and that's something for us that would be really useful to get to know. You know, okay, so we have this certain type of, you know, how you call this, heat unit in a house. How many years? What's the lifespan of this machine? And after how many years you will get the first rate of failures? And that's that's information that's now all with the field engineers, you know. And we want to have it digitally, because, you know, it's a lot of hearsay, but you want to have the data, you want to have the insight. And that would be for us a really important dashboard to have.
Sounds indeed really important. And well, it's a bit like with the SAP story, that if you don't have the underlying IT systems, then of course you can't make dashboards, and you have to rely on what people tell you. But once you have the basic data, it doesn't mean that you automatically have the right dashboards, because the knowledge resides with people. And I think they're and by the time you have the right dashboards, then the Rob comes around with but actually what we see is that adding value to the and sometimes that's not so clear. I think we are ready for the third and the final question, gentlemen.